work. And work is one of the ways that we contribute to this country, that we grow our GDP, we grow our tax base, we contribute to each other effectively, we help finance our national security, our homeland security, our infrastructure.
I had key employees that really wanted to be leaders in the company, but they didn't want to have any ownership and responsibility that way. So I just had to start researching out and figuring out, well, how do I market my company?
Go to your local school board for 1 hour twice this year. And if you can have even just 10 or 15 employers show up and do that at the same school board every single month, there's 2 contractors filling out a little card to give your 30 seconds at the podium that says, I need your help and we have great jobs. Eventually they will hear you. But if everyone just did 2 hours a year, that's how we change this.
Stacy, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great.
She loves it. I ask the question every time. She's just like, I'm fine, dude. Just a little much.
And I say to that owner, I said, so you're not willing to invest in yourself? You're not going to invest in yourself. You're going to invest in companies you have no control over, whereas your company you control, and you don't have the confidence to pour the money into that.
When things are busy and they're looking for their GC friends to sit down and negotiate a project on a GC and a fee, and they're more excited about building the project, and then all of a sudden the market swings, and now the developer market is going to go out and they're going to hard bid the same project to 2 or 3 different GCs, and that's where it starts going down.
It's morning huddle time. Good morning. I've got Chris with us and Stacy with us this morning. Good to see you both. Stacy, how are you today?
I'm doing great. A little shout out to my new intern, Lexi. So hopefully she logged on today, but she's going to be helping us with some of the morning huddle activities throughout her internship this summer with me.
Wonderful. Help is something we need.
Definitely.
Thank you. That's great news, Stacy. It's great. Chris, how are you this morning?
I'm great. Yeah. Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Stacy, for having me on.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. So Chris Bybee is the Director of Strategic Growth for Interplay Learning, and he's Interplay Learning is a company that has designed immersive sort of virtual reality training experiences for the skilled trades. So there are ways to create faster educational paths. I'm going to let Chris describe this a little bit more. Chris, talk a little bit about the company and maybe a little bit more on your background so our audience has a sense for sort of who you are.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chad. No, you nailed a lot of it. So as Chad mentioned, I'm Christopher Bybee. I serve as Interplay Learning's Director of Strategic Growth, really looking at new markets, new opportunities. And the more interesting thing is really what Interplay does. And as Chad mentioned, we're trying to be the global leader of on-demand career trades training. And how we do that is we do that via simulations. So I think the simplest way to put it is think of a video game. Instead of shooting a bad guy, we swap out that with troubleshooting a rooftop package unit or fixing a toilet. And we're really trying to bring this simulated environment, which allows for very scalable training to the next generation of worker. We're trying to equip contractors, educators, workforce development programs with a tool to really meet that next generation of worker and train them up in a faster way. So excited to dive in and really appreciate you all having me on.
No, it's our pleasure. And if I'm not mistaken, Stacy, isn't there some personal connection that you have to Interplay or at least?
Yeah. My boss at the time, Mark Jury, who's now with Mark Jury Associates, me and him sat down with Interplay maybe like 6 years ago, and you guys were kind of in preliminary stages and more on the residential end than commercial. But since then, and you'll get into it, I mean, they've made so many great improvements. He just gave me a demonstration a couple months ago. So it's pretty impressive. So you'll get to see it.
It's definitely an exciting time for technology of all kinds. It's an exciting time for technology in the building industry and for all the ugliness that COVID brought us. One of the things I think COVID did bring us, at least in the building industry, is a willingness to embrace technology out of necessity in a way that didn't exist before. And I'll be interested to know, did that propel the growth or the I don't know, did that change? Did COVID change in any way the trajectory of your business?
Yeah, no, entirely. I think you nailed it on the head. I think the construction industry generally tends to follow second on some of these technology changes, right? And I think what we saw was contractors and educators got comfortable with the idea of online remote learning out of necessity, like you said, through COVID, and where we were able to step in, and I think where VR and other augmented technology is able to step in is really by creating those lifelike, field-like environments in that technology world. So you reduce materials costs entirely, right? You no longer need a lab space to teach your guys. You also don't have to worry so much about safety. So you can put them in an environment that's safe, and they can
If you electrocute yourself virtually, you're going to be okay.
We're working on that. We're working on a way to really put this
You should.
Yeah, exactly right. But I guess in summary, I think it was overall a good thing. I think for the construction industry, for virtual reality in general, and we were excited to help fill that gap in kind of that time.
That's cool. So by way of additional play in, just to kind of get everybody's head wrapped around exactly what this looks and feels like, I'll apologize in advance for our audio only audience that may be listening to this via Spotify or Apple Music or Apple Podcast or what have you. But I'm going to play a little less than a minute video clip that kind of goes through what this looks like and feels like. And Stacy, coming away from that, I'm going to ask you obviously to do what you do so well, which is to work with the audience and capture any questions that we can bring back with the last 10 minutes or so.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome. All right, cool. Let's check this out. Cool. All right. So for those who are joining audio only, what just occurred was you could actually see this experience in action where you have somebody with the VR, and you'll talk about some of this technology itself, but with a VR headset is the best as I can describe it, and a couple of hand controls actually going through the process of messing with electronics, not electronics, but appliances,
right.
HVAC units, things along those lines. And so which I think is really impressive and it's exciting. I'm going to ask Chris, what's the goal with this whole movement? Speaking maybe a little bit less about Interplay at this point, and maybe more as a spokesperson for the movement that might be VR in construction training.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I think VR is. I'll make a quick comment about VR, and then I'll tie it all back to your main question. But VR is a part of our technology. It's an important part, but it's not the crux of it. Really, the simulations are, which can be delivered on VR, desktop, tablet. And why that's important is because that allows this tool to be a one-to-many scalable solution. And when you look at kind of the more professional workers, so desk jobs, they've got a lot of tools like Masterclass, LinkedIn Learning, where this idea of one-to-many scalable solution has worked very well from a teaching standpoint. And our kind of single truth that we believe in is that the one-to-many skills training platform is really the tool and solution to the global skills gap problem. So you have to have some sort of training tool that is deployable across geographies, meets learners where they're at, to really solve this skills gap we're seeing. And it equips the contractor with a tool that's deployable in that sense. It gives the learner a tool that's smart and complex and allows them to learn at their own pace. So ultimately, I think that VR simulations and this broader scalable solution just allows for the construction industry to really combat the global skills gap, if you will.
Right on. And I know you follow the Morning Huddle, so you know that in our past 2 episodes, we've been really talking about that skills gap. We talked with Amy Rock, who's developed this program inside Prince George's County Public Schools that's being emulated by other school systems, really talking about how do we get the young people involved. There's something that's designed to address the total personnel count problem that we have, right? And leading then into the conversation that we had last week, with Mark Perna, who was talking about generations in the workplace and what are we doing to engage youth and young people.
Right.
Now you're talking about bringing VR to bear as a training tool, as a way of helping to close a skills gap. But another thing that I can't help thinking about is how that actually plugs in with the youth aspect that both Amy and Mark were with us talking about for the past 2 episodes. So to what extent, I guess, do you feel like, in addition to addressing the skills gap and bringing technology to where people are, do you have any reason to believe that this is helping in any way to attract more young people?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one funny story that I like to tell, and it's one of our customers who has said it, is, and he's a big believer in Interplay and kind of the broader, simulation technology is, the challenge is we try to recruit these 18-year-old, 19-year-old guys or girls into our program that spent the last 8-10 years of high school or middle school using an iPad, learning on the computer, and they show up on day one and we put a 65-year-old guy in front of them to teach them out of a textbook, right?
Right, with a chalkboard.
Yeah, exactly. The chalkboard. And a little bit of a funny story, and no shame against the 65-year-old instructor, but I think where we can step in is really as a supplemental tool, and whether it's us or another simulation or VR provider, I think it allows you to almost make the trade sexy again, if you will, for lack of a better word, and so I think you're exactly right. You're spot on there.
Well, and you said that that story illustrates it well, where I think what happens is the educational system has actually done a pretty nice job of integrating technology into young people's experience, whether that is partial virtual classroom environments or fully immersive experiences that they're going through virtually as a part of their college curriculum or as a part of their tech school curriculum and things like that. I mean, certainly I'm here on location today at Penn College, which is a Penn State affiliate in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Long story, but I'm up here hanging out. And one of their facilities are absolutely amazing. I'm not getting paid to say that, but they're really spectacular facilities in terms of technical education. And now here they go into the workforce, and there's a tech drop off.
Right.
Shouldn't it be the opposite? Shouldn't it be like, all right, now I've graduated, now here comes the real stuff.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I do think that there's kind of a strategic advantage that an organization could get by embracing this type of technology as a way of attracting more of that young talent that has kind of come up with a technology background. So fit this all in with apprenticeship programs. Help me understand where all that fits, because I think we all know that apprenticeship programs are critical. Is this going to replace apprenticeship? What happens?
Yeah, in the near term, the answer is no. We're a believer that we're not the first to come in with trades curriculum. We believe that we have maybe an additional tool to put in the toolbox, but really a reinforcing mechanism at this point. We're well aware and close with a lot of the national providers of curriculum for a lot of these apprenticeship programs, and where we have really fit in as a supplemental tool to provide that enhanced hands-on training aspect. Do I, from a bias perspective, believe eventually maybe there's a world where you could have a trade school from the Oculus? Absolutely, but we're certainly not quite there yet. And for now, it's really as a supplemental tool.
I think all the organizations that are fueling apprenticeship today they're obviously doing a world of good.
Yep.
And I think it's extremely important that that there comes to be a collaboration between what you're talking about, what you're doing, and what they're actively doing and have been doing for decades.
Agreed.
Are you in communication with apprenticeship organizations or agencies across the country?
We are, yeah, and in my mind, that takes a few forms. One is we actually have worked closely with the Department of Labor and have our own apprenticeship program. We really just did that so that our content, it can easily be placed into an existing program, and the standards don't have to be
Got it.
updated radically. So that's kind of number one. Number two is we've worked closely with folks like NCCR and other curriculum providers to say, how do we map to your curriculum? And then lastly is we've worked closely with a lot of associations who put all of this on, right? And the ABCs of the world, we have a close partnership with ABC. And so exactly right. We're late to the game in terms of apprenticeship, but we do believe that our tool allows kind of a enhanced experience for both the learner and for the ultimate employer, right? Our belief is that you're going to get a better trained, better equipped technician on day one than you would otherwise with this technology. And so really, again, I think it's just another tool in the toolkit.
I think I'm glad to hear you describe it the way that you are. I feel really anytime you take technology like this and you pit it against the establishment, if you will, it's a recipe for nothing happening. Right?
Totally.
So but anyway, you didn't come here for a lecture from me. I'm sorry, but I've
heard it before. Yeah.
I think you're heading down a good path. I like that. So one of the things when you and I had a kind of a get to know conversation leading up to the show that we talked about is that 72% of contractors or 70+% of contractors believe that they will have trouble finding labor in the years ahead, and that they're currently having trouble finding labor today. If I just anecdotally, without any hard statistics, I don't know a single trade contractor that wouldn't take more qualified, capable technicians, foremen, management, fill in the blank.
Yep.
Meanwhile, so they have this hard time finding labor. Meanwhile, they also believe that they're going to be growing their businesses. And those two things don't mesh.
Right.
Where can what we're talking about help?
Yeah, it's a good question. And you're spot on. I mean, every contractor we talk to is feeling the exact same pain. And just one add-on point is that the pain is not just from, if I have an HVAC shop, I don't just feel the pain from Chad's HVAC shop. I feel it from Amazon and every other hourly employer who's investing in education as a benefit.
Right.
But where I think this technology can help is do a couple things. One, it allows you to broaden your recruiting funnel, right? You might be able to recruit someone who has less skills because you're able to train them up faster with kind of the simulated technology. You theoretically put them in the field faster in the virtual reality world than you would be able to, in actual real life. Number two is I think with this technology, you're able to just get better data on what skills they're gaining, what skills they're having trouble with. And so it allows you to run, I would call a smarter shop, if you will, and know where to deploy, talent across the field. So in short, I think it reduces the training time. It allows a broader funnel, which just allows you to compete for talent, for the war on talent, as we described it.
Okay. So I'm gonna, I hope not upset you when I say this, but so circa March 2020, right? Let's take everybody back to March 2020. No, let's not go back to March 2020. But I certainly experienced, as a parent of three young children, two of whom were in school at that time. I remember virtual school, and I got to tell you, I don't think there was a lot of school occurring, during that time. Our opinion. The picture we have now of online school, I mean, it's not very positive, right?
Totally.
As we sort of work our minds to embrace this idea of virtual learning, with what we're talking about here, help me understand why this is not going to suck.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I think we've gotten all of that pushback. I think the fundamental difference is the field like learning, right? The simulations, and there's some good data about the median recall, which really just means how much do you remember, compared to desktop learning when it's about 75%. So you're actually interacting with a desktop versus the simulation. You recall about 75% of what you learn via desktop. You recall about 90% what you've learned via a simulation. So our belief is it's just better. It's like saying, you're driving a dinged up old car. In reality, what I think we're offering is kind of a new Chevrolet, right? I think there's a difference between kind of what we saw through the pandemic and that kind of Zoom-based online learning and the technology you see with simulations. So the last thing I'll note is we will never claim to replace on-the-job training. Hands down, that will always be the best form of training. What's challenging is there's typically one or two apprentices per journeyman, and that's hard to scale as you think about growing your business. So this is just a tool to both allow for better recall and B, allow you to scale faster.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and one other thought that I'll have, I'll kind of layer into this. I've heard dozens of times about one key roadblock is reliable transportation every single day for people to get to classroom environments. Young people, 18, 19, 20, that kind of range. Not uncommon that they don't have reliable transportation. I had an old school VW GTI. I would not call reliable at that time. You know what I'm saying? So I can relate. I think everybody, at that age is potentially challenged. I think if there's a way to augment some of their education by bringing them an education at home that actually works,
totally,
that actually really does work. There's something cool to be done here. I'm going to bring back Stacy. I'm sure she has amassed some questions, and we can kind of hear more what the audience wants to cover, because I could probably geek out going down all rabbit.
So Chris Blake from Pivot Workforce, he had a couple questions. We already answered the NCCER question, but can you confirm what trades you're actually currently working with?
Yeah, good question. So we serve the HVAC, plumbing, electrical markets. All of those roll up well into a nice facility maintenance catalog as well. And then we also serve the multifamily industry. Stacy, as you noted earlier, we have our roots on the residential side. We've done a lot of good work over the last year to move more into the commercial side. So you'll see more commercial service, more commercial install content, both in the catalog and coming.
And then what big commercial contractors are you currently working with?
Yeah, good question. I'll just leave it at the ABC relationship. I just don't want to name drop anybody without permission, but we do have a great relationship with ABC and several ABC chapters and a number of ABC contractors. We are working closely with a guy named John Morris through ABC Ohio Valley to both fit within their apprenticeship program and to sell through to a lot of their contractors as well.
And then could you walk us through, like, you're a first year apprenticeship just say plumber, electrician. What does it look like? You log into your system, and can you just kind of visualize that somehow for us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's similar to, many other kind of learning management systems. You'll have a dashboard which shows your, it's like kind of your home base, right? And you're able to see how many points you've acquired, what courses you have due that are upcoming, who on your team has more points than you. So we have a little bit of a competitive flair. From there, we have our catalog, and from there, you're able to do the simulations. So you have access to all the catalogs. And in those catalogs, we have what's called learning paths, which is really just an organized way of putting all the simulations together, or video courses to say, here, let's walk through HVAC fundamentals 1. And we kind of take a walk, jog, run approach where we'll show you some videos, kind of teach the theory. We'll then show you a video of the simulation with one of our SMEs talking about, hey, here's Stacy's what you're going to do in the simulation. And then we actually put you in the simulation. And we have a couple different levels of that where first, it's kind of like training wheels, very guided, and then it moves to kind of a more advanced where we really test your knowledge and recall.
Nice.
I could imagine there as an organization, let's say I'm an electrical contractor that makes this investment in having VR technology be a part of our program. I could imagine there's a big potential fail point of us as an organization not knowing how to manage this particularly effectively. I hear things like learning paths, and I absolutely agree that's sort of a well-established best practice for self-guided training types of courses, self-guided. Is there if I'm an organization wanting to implement something that incorporates at-home simulation learning, what kind of advice would you have for that organization?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think ultimately you have to show outcomes to the learner. Ultimately the biggest challenge we have is people don't love to do training, regardless if it's the school training or your traditional training. People like both the contractor likes their employer to be in the field and likes their employee to be in the field, and the employee when they're not working doesn't necessarily want to be doing virtual training.
Right. They hate not getting paid to train. Yeah. Right.
Exactly. And so I think either you have to pay them for that time, or you say, hey, Chad, here's your learning path. Once you complete this and you've got 6 months of experience, here's the promotion that you'll be eligible for. And so once you tie training to outcomes and skills achievement, I think there's just so much more buy-in. And it's all about this cultural shift of education being embedded in the workplace, and less of a check the box of, oh yeah, we did our safety training this month too. No, let's ensure that Chad is gaining skills in developing his career.
I love it. Yeah. One of the things that, in addition to I think those are fantastic points. One of the things that I would wonder if you've seen is when an organization kind of assigns a director of training, or training director, even if they're a small organization and that training director wears other hats, making somebody in a leadership capacity accountable for following through and making sure that the people who are supposed to be doing this are doing this. I can't tell you how many contractors I've talked to who've told me, there's nothing I can do. Like, it's amazing to me that I'm trying to offer these guys free money and they don't complete their training. It's crazy to me, type of stuff. And anyway, training directors, what's your take?
Yeah, no, I mean, we've that's another observation we've had, that you have to have someone who is responsible for it. And it doesn't, a lot of organizations are not big enough to have a director of training. And so maybe it falls on the person who handles all the HR, or maybe it's the owner. But I think, as an owner of the business, you have to do the ROI math. And we've done a lot of the math ourselves, where you show when we add one guy and we get him in the truck, we're going to drive $200,000 of revenue per year, right? And when you start to really peel back the layers, you can start to justify some of these investments
Right.
as an owner. But you're totally right. You have to assign someone who is responsible for these technicians or employees, doing the work.
And I know our good friend Mark Drury, who's second call out in one show. Mark, all right, good job. But our good friend Mark Drury will enjoy hearing me say this, which is that organizations have to break the mentality that their job is to go out and find qualified people. No, their job is to find people who have the potential to become qualified people, and then take educating their people really, really seriously, and grow their own talent. If you're waiting for somebody else to train people and put them in your organization, you're going to be waiting a long time, and you're going to be falling behind. So look, I love this conversation. Stacy, do we have any other questions?
I just have a quick question on the career path of things. If someone wants to get hired within your organization, how do you look for people that know the construction trades and also know VR, or what kind of positions are you looking for? Because that seems a little tough.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, to be fair, I didn't know really anything about the HVAC or plumbing or electrical industry when I started, and have learned a lot. But we employ a number of SMEs, market experts, subject matter experts, who help both on the content side and then help my team on how do we go to market effectively. So I guess, what I would say really for the audience listening is, yeah, if you don't know anything about VR, but you have a passion for the trades and you want to help on developing the next set of content for these learners, I would welcome a conversation, because we're always looking for additional help to think through content or go to market strategies, really to better serve the contractor and the employer.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
No,
Chris,
thank you all.
any final words before we jump?
No, just really appreciative to be on here. I have enjoyed y'all's show, and Mark's been a fun guy for us to work with, and so anybody who has Mark on shoutouts, I guess, is I'm a big fan of. So, thank you guys, and yeah, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Real pleasure. Okay, Stacy, let's talk about what we have coming up next week. And my gosh, we're heading down the final stretch of season 2. I cannot believe it.
I know.
We're it is moving fast. It really is. So one thing that I want to just plug real quick is that as we're loading up for season 3, which is going to get rolling in the sort of early fall, if you or someone has an important story to tell about creating positive change in the building industry, reach out to me or Stacy and let us know. We're putting together guests. I think we have 13 or 14 shows that we'll be putting on in season 3. I think we have something like 6 guests already lined up here in May.
Yeah, we'll probably fill up quickly. Season 2 filled up really quickly. So if you have any interest, we're definitely looking for like fun and new topics surrounding the building industry, and then we'll have some popular guests return.
No doubt. Yeah. So, some folks that we definitely got cut off with and said we could keep talking for a long time. So good. Please reach out to us on that. Next week, along the lines of interesting topics, we've got Dwayne Gleason coming to talk about connecting digital and physical construction. Dwayne is somebody who spent the first half of his career working in the field, in the trenches with a construction company, and then has spent the second portion of his career to date behind a computer screen, taking what he learned in physical construction and applying it to the digital world. It should be a really interesting discussion with one of the leaders at Trimble, who's obviously a leader in construction tech. So please do join us for that. And then finally, a reminder to everybody to just shoot Stacy a note. Let us know that you want to be on our weekly newsletter, that you don't want to have to try to keep up with the LinkedIn invites, and you just want to get an email that tells you what's happening and when, so you can click and register. With all of that, anything, Stacy, that I've missed or that you want to add?
Nope, you got it.
Right. I love that. All right. So thank you so much. Again, to Chris, Stacy, great job getting Chris here. I'm excited. I'm glad that we had that conversation. I think that it'll lead to some really interesting discussions internally for our audience.
Nice. Well, have a great day, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Sounds good.